Hi, today we're going to have a look at doing these Magnolia using the Derwent Inktense blocks. I've just got the set of 24, but there's some absolutely fabulous colours in these and they're really versatile. And the good thing about them is they come with the palette in the middle already there for you to use. So I'll just pop them to one side. They may be a little bit bright for what we need, but you can use them with plenty of water because they do end up quite transparent. So if we want a paler pink, we can use that one with more water. Okay, so that's got my brush and my pencil, and I've just done a little bit of an outline in pencil. This photograph, you can find the link down below for that. So if you did want to print it off or do work from the computer using that photograph, the link's there in the description. And I've just picked out these couple of flowers in the centre with one or two leaves and a bud. I've not done the whole thing, just picking out some interesting leaf shapes, and I've actually brought those flowers a little bit closer together and more overlapping than they are on here. So I've altered it a little bit, just getting a general feel for the magnolia and the colours and things. So I think I'll start off trying to get the trunks in first, the branches. So with the Inktense, you can use them like a paint, or you can pick them up and draw with them. You could use them onto wet paper, or you could use them onto dry paper and then wet them. I'm going to use them today like paint, so I'm just going to pop some water in the palette as you would with your watercolours, and then pick up some colour. So the browns we've got, this is quite a nice brown, I think. Yeah, it's quite a dark one, so we won't use too much of it, and I'll get a little bit more water in there. You can see a lot of these are snaps. They're quite fragile, but it doesn't really matter too much because you can still use them, you know, just brush the pigment off, so it's not a massive problem that they're snapped. So I haven't done and I've slopped on there already. I haven't done too much drawing of all the branches and things, just a little bit. And like I say, keeping it quite transparent. And so it goes up there, behind that leaf. And just obviously look back at your drawing and make sure that you're not overlapping, going in front where you should be going behind. And then over here on this one, I've not put much trunk in at all. Just that little bit. Can you see there, I had it a bit thicker, so it's gone on a little bit darker. You could lift some of that out if you were worried about it taking too long to dry and maybe smudging it. So you can see by just using a tiny bit off there how you've actually got quite a lot of colour on there already. And I'm just going to make that a little bit darker using one of these really nice dark blues, adding that to it. Just to pop a little bit of shadow. So we'd obviously have a bit of shadow here underneath this flower and down along where the leaves are. A little bit perhaps under here. And then again here. I'm just going to blend that in a little bit. So just as you would with your watercolours, just blend it in using a damp brush. And that's just giving us a little bit more of the, whoops, I've messed there, a little bit more of the effect of bark, just giving us, adding that little bit of extra colour. Okay, and I'm going to leave that because we're going to keep this quite a simple painting. We're not going to put loads of detail in, and we'll go on to the leaves. So for the leaves, trying to think which green to go for first. I think I'll set off with the nice pale green and then put some of the richer colours in for the shadows. This is a lovely one. The thing about these Derwent Inktense, they don't have named colours. I've made myself a little chart on the back of my tin, just so and keeping them in that order so I can have a little bit of a reference, but they don't actually have colours. They have numbers on them, so you can make a note of the numbers that you like for next time you want to buy them, if you have some favourites, but they don't have actual names. But this is like a sagey olive green, which is rather nice. So this brush has got quite a nice tip on it. It's just a synthetic one, but it gets into the corners quite nicely. You see this leaf is twisting over, so I've got that line there to give us that twist, and when I come back I'll put some shadow in there. And then the stem of the little flower, the little bud there, just making sure I'm not leaning on that where I splodged before, is green as well. So we're just going to go over all these leaves in green and then come back and do the shadows. So I'll perhaps speed the video up at this point. Okay, so if we look at the leaves on here, we can see that it's a very sunny day and they're casting quite dark shadows on the underside of some of these leaves where the leaves above are keeping them in the shade, and they're quite thick leaves, they're quite leathery in a way, so they do cast quite a bit of shadow. So we need to get some of those contrasts going on with some of these leaves, put some darker bits in. You'll see I did make a mistake here. I started painting one of my flower petals green. So just, think about that when you're doing it, that which are flowers and which are leaves, because in magnolias particularly, they're quite a similar shape actually. And I've missed that stem there as well, I've just noticed. Like I said before, the stems are a similar colour to the leaves. Okay, so I'm going to go for the darker green now, and I'll just use the same palette there to pop this darker green in. It's a bit of a khaki green. Some of these Inktense greens are actually a lot more natural than some of the watercolours that you buy. So I'm just looking up here. So just left the centre of that leaf to make it look like that's the actual vein. So do keep looking back at your photograph, but don't worry about getting every single leaf just maybe as it is on there. Don't forget that whoever's looking at your painting later is not going to have a picture of each leaf and be comparing it. Just get a feel for the shadows going on. And where some of these are still wet, let them run into each other as well. So you've got some hard edges and some soft edges, a bit of a combination. So there, because that's still quite wet, we'll just let some of that green run in. Won't worry too much about where that actual shadow is on the original photograph. Just give it a bit of a feel. Whoops. Made a mess at the end there, but it doesn't matter, we'll just soon smooth that off. And because this one's at the base, underneath a lot of the others, it's going to be quite dark. If you vary the amount of pigment, your greens are going to vary slightly on each leaf, which is good because it just looks more natural that way, because of course each leaf's going to be completely different. If you want to go even darker in some areas, just go back and pop some extra in while it's still wet. Okay, I think those two colours look quite nice together, and now I'm going to put some yellow in, because it's a very sunny day, like I said before, and there is quite a bit of yellow showing in these leaves as well. So a nice bright one. Like I said before, these don't have names, but I would call this, it's very similar to a cadmium yellow. Again, let them flow in if they want to start flowing in to each other where they're still wet. And just see how lovely and bright that is. So I don't believe you get the same effect putting a yellow over the top of that green with your watercolours. These are much stronger in colour and they lay on top of each other really well. They dry quite quickly as well, but they do merge together really nicely on the paper also. So we've got a combination of wet on dry and wet in wet here. And you can see how you soon get that feel for the leaves. But you can make, with watercolour, if your painting's a little bit dull and muddy, it's very difficult to get those bright colours back. But with these it seems a lot easier to get some bright colours back in there. See how popping that yellow on top of there really shows up. So although we've covered up a lot of that first green colour that we put on, the olivey one, it's still showing through because they are transparent. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the flowers themselves. Like I said, the pink that we've got here is very bright, so we're going to need quite a bit of water in that. And not too much pigment. And the more pink at the base of the flower, and the base of this one's actually behind this leaf. And that green's flowed in, but that's actually quite nice because it's looking like that's where the stem joins the flower, and it's looking like they're growing nicely together. And I've actually forgotten, we've got this little pink bit at the top as well, we've got a bud there. So just quickly fill that one in as well. And some of that yellow's flowing in, and you can see it flowing in there as well, and I'm not worrying too much about that. If you want to wait for each, you know, wait for the leaves to dry before you start the petals, that's absolutely fine as well. But I don't mind that, it's, A little bit of sunshine coming onto the flower maybe, it doesn't matter, does it? So if you look at the photograph, like I say, the link's below, and if you look at the photograph you can see these flowers are very, very pale, almost white at the tips. So this, we don't need it to be any stronger than this at the edges. And we can rub some of these pencil lines out later when it's dry. Some of these hard pencil lines on the edge there, we can get rid of a few of those. Or if you want it more stylised, you could actually paint around those, or do them with a fine liner. The paper that I'm using is a mixed media paper, which is handy to have in, especially if you like working with different things. I can use this for the inks, use it for the Inktense, and I can use it for watercolour and the brusho as well. So it's a handy thing to have in. It's a mixed media paper. So we're not overcomplicating these shapes, keeping them quite simple. I've just noticed I've missed a bit of that stem down there at the bottom, so I'll do that in a minute when I've got all this pink on. So we still had some of that brown, so I'm just going to extend that down and see my pencil lines a little bit further down than I had it. Okay, so now I'm going to get some stronger pink to go at the base, because if you look at the flowers, right at the base of the flower, so it's the same pink that I'm using, but I'm just using it more thickly whilst these are still wet. So if you look at the base, that's where it's the most pink. And if you want to soften that off, you can do, or you can leave it like that. Either way, it's okay. I'm just going to soften it a little bit in areas and leave some of those lines as well. That's turned out a little bit more purpley than I would have liked, although when I do look at the picture it is quite purpley, so I'll leave it for now. That's darker there where it's casting a shadow. And they have got some veins going up, you can see the veins, so if you just indicate some of those lines in the direction that they're going. Okay, and now we've got the general shapes of the flowers, and we don't want to put too much more colour in them because, like I said, they're very, very pale. I'm just going to get a little bit of blue, pop it into that mix. Actually, it's purple, the one I've picked up by mistake, but we'll use it. Sort of purple, it's quite an ultramarine colour, and we're mixing it with the same pink. And we're not going to put that in too many places, just where it's absolutely the darkest. So around there, and up this side where that one's in the shadow of that one, and down here where it's in the shadow, here, and on the underside of this one. Here it shouldn't have bled into that because that's where the edge of one petal is and the start of another, so I'm just going to tidy that up. And actually I think it could benefit from having a little bit in the centre of this one, just make them a little bit more uniform. Okay. And I actually really like this colour that the yellow and the pink's made there, so I'm going to pop just in a couple of places, whilst it's still wet, a couple of touches of this yellow, just to replicate this that we had there, and then leave it. And I think that's quite nice as it is, and we don't want to overcomplicate it by putting too much detail in. Now, if we look at the photograph, the sky, like I said before, it's a very, very sunny day and the sky is very, very blue, and I think this would look really nice with a blue background. So I'm going to go on and finish that after this has dried, and I'll carry on videoing and I'll show you that when it's finished. But for now, that's everything really. So like I say, you can use them in different ways. You can use them by picking them up and drawing with them, then wetting them. It's quite nice if you draw onto wet paper with them and let them kind of dissolve. I have done other Inktense videos, there's a playlist here if you want to watch that. But have a go yourself with that photograph that's down below. It's license free and free to download. Okay, so let me know how you get on, and thanks for watching, and bye for now.